Flipside by Bedhead, Chapter 8. Celestia sat alone in one of the back rooms of Town Hall, simply looking out the window. The mayor's aide had been incredibly relieved when her chariot had finally landed. She'd been ushered inside immediately to discuss the schedule one last time. Time Turner had seemed quite proud of the idea of revealing her from behind the stage curtains. Rarity, who was drawn the curtains for sunrise, had almost been unable to speak in her excitement. She could only smile and nod. It was a simple presentation, but there was something appealing about it. Celestia felt a pang of regret of not getting to see the townsfolk's faces at the big reveal. Dwight Alicorn fought back her tears, looking up to the moon once more. She could see 4 bright lights slowly moving towards the silver disk. The eyes of the mayor and the moon seemed to only brighten in anticipation. It shouldn't be long now. As the moon shone down from Ponyville, a somewhat haggard Spike trotted down the road. Twilight rode on his back, seemingly ignoring of her partner's frown. In the distance, the deep blue of the night sky seemed to be lightening. Dawn wasn't far off. "It was really nice of Pinkie Pie to help like that," Twilight pointed out as he flipped through a notepad. "Thanks to her, we've got more interviews than we could possibly use." "Yeah," Spike said, rolling his eyes. "But Pinkie's party went on way too long for everybody. Almost missed the sunrise." Spike gestured ahead to where several ponies could be seen hurrying around Town Hall. The lights on inside the wooden tower, and the sounds of chattering could be heard from within. In spite of all that, Spike still kept an even pace, with a deep frown on his face. "Look at the bright side, Prose," Twilight tried to encourage him. "This way, we won't need to worry about trying to get an interview with Princess Celestia." "That's the whole problem, Twi," Spike complained, stopping in his tracks. "Any pony could have gotten the interviews we have now." He felt Twilight tapping her claws against his back as he cleared her throat. Spike rolled his eyes again with a sigh. "I could have gotten them if I had more than one day," he insisted. "Look, you're the one that said that this was a chance to show Inkblot my stuff. An interview with the princess would have been great for that." Spike began walking again, held his head down high as the sky brightened to the east. He felt his hat being lifted away, though, and raised his head just in time for a claw hand to pat him between the ears. "Spike," Twilight said as he patted down his mane, "you've got so much done in just one day. I'm sure Inkblot is going to be plenty impressed." Spike felt his hat settle back down and gave his assistant a little smile. She beamed in return, wrapping her little arms around him in a hug. In spite of her using his real name, he snuzzled her in return. "Besides, the party isn't over yet," Twilight continued. "There's still the sun racing to get to. I'm sure the princess will have a few words for the press after that." Spike nodded before scrunching his brow. Something about the words sun racing rang in his head. He guessed the sudden realization, eyes flying wide open. "Oh my gosh!" he exclaimed, breaking into a gallop. Twilight barely managed to hold on, and Spike ran full tilt into Town Hall. He skated to a halt, pitching the unfortunate dragoness to the ground, as he looked at his reflection in one of the windows. "Oh!" Twilight moaned, clutching her head as she got up. "What was that all about?" Much to her surprise, a green glow answered her. Spike was concentrating, magic aura covering his body. His spiky mane and tail smoothed themselves out. His coat shimmered as he telekinetically brushed out the day's tangles. As a finishing touch, his hat landed back on his head, tilting himself as he cast his reflection at a nearby window and winked. "You're absolutely right, Twi," he said, rustling her spines playfully. "There's plenty to look forward to after the sunrise." "That's the spirit!" Twilight cheered, ignoring her minor headache. "Namely, my date with Rarity," he said, spinning towards the door. "Thanks for reminding me!" Dreaming look on his face, as the spirits went higher, Spike trotted right into Town Hall. Twilight stood in silence for a moment, at her partner's sudden mood swing. Finally, her clawed hand smacked into her face, as he plodded in after him. Rarity had done a good job on the decorations. That much was easy to see. Glaring streamers and elaborate beamers hung from the walls and ceiling, all of them muted shades of blue. Spike almost felt like he was standing amidst the dark sky above, with dawn approaching. Ponies of every hue and tribe filled the room, with laughter and talk, and Spike found himself picking a few out of the crowd. He could see Thunder Lane and Rumble near one of the buffet tables. The younger colt was laughing with Apple Bloom, while his brother chatted with Applejack. Big Mac watched the pair of foals with a silent smile on his face. As Quill already moving again, Spike made notes of the partygoers. Cheerilee was surrounded by students. Based on the broad sweeps of her hose, she seemed to be telling a story, or possibly wanting to swat a fly. Spike chuckled to himself as he jotted both down. His gaze turned up and stopped. Rarity was on a balcony overlooking the main floor. Spike's lids drooped as his dopey smile returned. He was talking to Time Turner, her coat sparkling with the moonlight shining through the windows. He barely registered Time Turner walking through the curtain as he was standing in front of us. He was turned down to look at. Hi, Mr. Prose! Spike's vision was suddenly filled with a smiling gray face and yellow eyes. He jumped back, nearly crossing into Twilight behind him. Dizzy just giggled as Spike managed to keep his balance on his hind legs, just long enough to get back on all fours. Are you having fun? Dizzy asked, as he carefully balanced a plate of muffins on her back. Ooh, I'll bet you get a lot of interviews, especially that party Pinky threw for you. Dizzy kept chattering away, not noticing as Spike's attention slipped. His eyes floated about the room, spotting a pair of pure white Pegasi in golden armor. His pen scratched out some notes about the guards as the door they stood in front of opened. Spike raised an eyebrow as Time Turner walked out, his brow furrowed in confusion. He spoke to the guards, both of whom looked skeptical. Earth Pony merely shrugged in response to their stares. The unicorn felt his eyes nearly bulge from their sockets as the pair of soldiers followed Time Turner away from the door. Hey, are you alright? Dizzy's voice broke through Spike at least. Prose? Twilight hopped up to his back, prodded him. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, he managed to say, looking from the door to Ditsy. Hey, Ditsy do? I don't suppose you know where that door goes. Gray Mare's drifting eyes managed to focus on the door in question, as her muzzle scrunched in thought. A smile broke out as she nodded. Oh, sure, she cheered. That goes to the backstage for when we have plays and stuff in here. Prose? Twilight suddenly sounded worried as the stallion smiled. You don't say, he asked, quill of paper sparking with a fresh come-to-life enchantment. Yep, pretty sure at least, Dizzy confirmed as she flapped her wings. Well, I better get these muffins to Dinky before she wonders where I am. Enjoy the sunrise. Oh, I plan to. Spike assured her as he floated above the crowd and flew off. The second Dizzy was gone, Spike tried toward the door. Twilight's hairpins didn't even faze him as his magic grabbed the handle. What do you think you're doing? Twilight whispered harshly. Princess Celestia's probably back there. Exactly, Spike pointed out as he opened the door cracked and peeked in. The guards left, Twilight. This is a great chance. To do what? Twilight admonished, still not releasing his ear. Get into trouble for distracting her? Only it's a couple of minutes until sunrise. Spike took a step back, in sight of frustration. Twilight, just think about how the interview will look, he pleaded, trying to catch her eye. If we hurry, I can at least get my hoof in the door. His lower lip quivered a bit, eyes wide and shining. Twilight bit down on her lip and slowly released his ear. The sound of birdsong began to fill the room, drawing every pony else's attention to the main stage. Spike spotted a spotlight turned on as highlighting an earth mare with a gray mane. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced as Spike edged the door open. It is my pleasure as Mayor of Ponyville to announce the beginning of the Summer Sun celebration. With every pony's attention on the stage, Spike's magic grabbed the door and opened it further. He slid in, letting the door to shut between him and Twilight. Mayor Mare's speech was silenced as the door closed. Young Stallion smirked as he started up a short flight of stairs. Twilight still held tight to him, almost trembling out of her scales. I still think this is a bad idea, she whispered to him. What if she gets mad, or thinks we're spies or something? Spies? Spike asked, giving Twilight a deadpan look. From where? I don't know, said Bryca probably. Twilight responded in a harsh whisper. But if she does, we could be banished, or thrown in a dungeon, or bit. She was cut off by Spike's hat, suddenly covering her face. She pulled it off with a gasp, before jamming it back on his head. The stallion just sniggered a bit as she glared at him. You worry too much, Twilight. Spike told her as he reached the top of the stairs. Look, it won't be long. I duck in, ask if she can give me a few words after the sunrise, and leave. No pony else would even know we're here. Twilight started to open her mouth, and a sudden tingling sensation over her body cut her off. Spike shuddered as the same feeling overcame him, like thousands of spiders scuttling all over his body. His horns sparked as clouds of black mist formed in the backstage area. What's going on? Twilight whispered, as her claws dug into Spike's shoulders. I'm not sure, Spike answered. A scroll of paper hovered by his side as he finished climbing the stairs. A short hallway greeted him. One door in particular set open, strange swirls of black circulating from it. Swallowing hard, the young reporter edged closer. In just a few moments. Celestia's eyes widened. The sound of Mayor's speech was warping and distorting as an unpleasant tingling ran down her wings. The white alicorn got to her hose, looking through the window once more. Her heart sank as she saw the pristine, white surface of the moon outside. So, you finally come, she said, lowering her eyes and wings. There was silence for a brief moment, before a chilling laugh filled the room. Celestia turned away from the curtain as clouds of black mass had coalesced before her. Slowly, she took the shape of another alicorn, one that was almost as tall as he was. Oh, did I keep you waiting? A voice that masked the laughter asked. Don't worry. Starswell's time pocket spell will give us plenty of time to catch up. The clouds surrounding the mayor dropped away. Celestia could only stare in a mixture of horror and acceptance at the pitch-black alicorn before her. Decorative blue armor covered her graceful body, reflecting the stars in her ethereal mane. Before she could speak, Celestia sensed magic swirling around her. By instinct, her horn started to light. She quickly sculpted as the black clouds wrapped around her in a silent whirlwind. Honestly, Celestia, I'm unimpressed. The mayor chastised, flipping her mane a bit. I expected some resistance at least. You and I both know how much damage our last battle did, Celestia responded, her eyes shut as she spoke. I won't do that to my little ponies. Not again. I suppose that shouldn't surprise me, the dark mare admitted, stepping closer. But really, nothing at all. Celestia merely stayed silent, her eyes closed. Her thoughts struggled to turn away from what was happening. She remembered sunlit days spent laughing with her subjects. Beautiful nights brought forth by no army! No topping of the stand for you! Her opponent's voice interrupted as her wings flared. You didn't even try to bring the elements of harmony! Celestia immediately remained silent, her mind back on the horror that was happening now. The black alicorn snorted, tiny clouds of steam coming from her nostrils. How typical, the alicorn growled, scraping the ground. Even when I'm about to banish you, you still will pay attention to me! Celestia opened her eyes, focusing directly on the mare. Her words from earlier that day echoed in her head. Her hope that this could be talked about. One look in the eyes of the monster before her abolished the idea. Is this the part where I beg for mercy? Celestia asked, feeling her anger rise for the first time in eons. The night-themed alicorn before her drew back surprised. Celestia drew herself to full height. Rice's anger swelled within her. Is that how you pictured it? She challenged, wishing she could step closer to emphasize. My allies scattered, me broken, and whimpering for help! The alicorn grit her teeth in response, anger flooding her eyes. Luna knew I would never endanger others for the sake of our battle. Celestia went on, not wavering as she locked eyes with the nightmare. But you're not Luna anymore. You're just a twisted caricature made of nothing but bad dreams. Small wonder you picked the name you did. Shut up. The armor princess spoke through clenched teeth, her mane and wings flaring. I thought you liked that name, Celestia goaded, eyes narrowing. You are not Luna. You are Nightmare Moon, and I won't give you the satisfaction of breaking me. Celestia felt a sense of release. After 1,000 years, finally facing this creature had taken over her sister. Seeing the anger, the sheer frustration directed at her, and only her, no pony else. The anger slowly gave way to a sick smile. Celestia raised an eyebrow as her once sister began to chuckle. Is that so? Nightmare Moon asked, her body flaring with dark aura. Yes. I suppose you've had time to prepare. Nothing I could do to you would possibly work. A bolt of black energy lashed out behind Nightmare Moon. A strangled cry sounded from beyond the door frame. Celestia gasped in horror as something was yanked hard into the room. No, she pleaded. feeling tears form. A unicorn stallion, purple in color with a green mane. He twisted and struggled into Nightmare Moon's telekinetic grip, his own magic feebly trying to break her hold on him as Celestia stabbed one hoof. "Let him go!" she demanded. "You don't want to know who he is," Nightmare Moon taunted, pulling the stallion closer. "Come now, young coat. Tell us your name." "Purple Prose," he managed to stammer out, cringing in fear. Celestia's mind was reeling. It wasn't supposed to be any pony else. This was supposed to be just between her and Nightmare Moon. Now the former Mayor of the Moon was smiling as he levitated Prose overhead. "And just what were you doing back there?" she asked. "I'm a journalist," he squeaked out, press fast holding his head. I was trying to speak with the princess." "Please," Celestia begged, her voice cracking. "He has nothing to do with this! Just let him go!" Nightmare Moon was ignoring her, looking blankly at the press pass. "Journalist?" she asked, glaring at Prose as she enunciated each syllable. "Yeah," he said, nodding frantically. "I just report the news, that's all!" "Oh, I heard." Nightmare Moon's smile returned. "Then you could be use of me in a moment." Celestia struggled to scream as Purple Prose was shoved into the corner of the room. Nightmare Moon rounded on her once again. The black whirlwind around Celestia increased in intensity, slowly obscuring her vision. "Don't worry, Celestia," Nightmare Moon taunted as he faded from view. "I'll make sure you can see us. You get to see just what a good job I'm doing, taking care of your little ponies." Celestia's eyes widened in horror. Her magic struggled against the winds, straining to break her free. "No!" she managed to protest. She was flying away, soaring into the night sky. But still her eyes could see Nightmare Moon turning back towards Purple Prose. The stallion trembled with fear as the Mare of Darkness approached him. The first of many, she was sure. Celestia let one last futile scream. "The ruler of our land!" Mare's speech was still continuing. Twilight dashed through the door and back into the main room. Her heart was thudding against her ribs so hard it was a wonder they didn't crack. She leaned against the wall, struggling to breathe, only to jump as a hoof fell over her shoulder. "Twilight, it's all right," Cheerly's voice spoke up. "It's just me." Twilight found herself looking up at the purple schoolteacher. Time Terror was also trying over, glancing from Twilight to the door she had just run through. "Are you all right?" Cheerly asked, leaning closer to the dragon. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "What were you doing back there?" Time Terror asked as he approached. "Is Purple Prose in there too?" "Yes!" Twilight shouted, gesturing frantically. "And so is... oh no." "The good, the wise," Mare continued. Twilight's heart nearly stopped. The last few moments felt like a bad dream, but all too real. She recalled being shoved towards the stairs by Spike's magic, gesturing her to run. The stallion struggled against the magical grip of... "We have to start the ceremony!" Twilight shouted frantically. "Now!" The dragon tried to run to the stage, only for Time Turner to block her path. The town stallion put a restraining hoof and shook her head. "Hang on now, Miss Twilight," he said in a gentle tone. "I'm afraid you're not making any sense." The dragoness opened her mouth to protest, but her voice died in her throat. "Princess Celestia!" Mare finished her speech with a grand gesture to the upper balcony. "No," Twilight whimpered, staring up at the curtains as Rarity drew them. "Oh no, 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 no." There was a gasp from the audience. Standing in the spotlight, behind the now-drawn curtains, was Spike. His eyes cringed as Ponyville fell upon him. Rarity slowly approached, her face a mask of confusion. "Mr. Prose," she asked, speaking past him as though Celestia was there. "What are you doing here?" Spike cut himself off as he felt a tingle in the back of his head. "Say it like I told you." Spike swallowed hard and stepped forward, leading Rarity away from the curtains as he did. "The fillies and gentlecoats," he stammered out, black winds beginning to whirl behind him. "It gives me great pleasure to present the return of Equestria's Princess of the Night." His gaze fell to his hooves as he heard the crack of thunder behind him. He didn't dare look back, though he could already tell what had happened. The audience was staring in shock as the black alicorn appeared on the balcony. Nightmare Moon, he said, quill and ink flowing beside themselves back to his saddlebags. Chapter 9. Nightmare Moon's twisted smirk hadn't faded in the slightest. The moment of her long-awaited victory was etched into her long memory. The terrified expression on Celestia's face as a cloud of darkness carried her away shone brightly against her most treasured images. Only slightly dimmer were the faces of the crowd of ponies below. Simple little visitors, staring up in awe and horror as he appeared. She seemed the same sort of fear 1,000 years ago. Now she couldn't fathom why she ever hated it. The purple unicorn in front of her was trembling as he appeared forward. Her herald gulped as her starry maid reached out and pushed him to the one side. He offered no resistance, stepping away to the opposite side of the balcony as the white mare. "Oh, my beloved subjects," Celeste Nightmare Moon spoke, realizing each word as he scanned the crowd. "It's been so long since I've seen your precious little sun-loving faces." Most of the audience went silent. One voice rang out from a corner, though. A cyan mare with a very colorful mane was charging right at her. "What did you do with our princess?" she shouted as he approached. Some pony below cursed. An orange earth mare jumped up, trying to grab the Pegasus' passing tail. She flailed as the rainbow mare swerved up toward the dark alicorn. The black mare watched as he approached. "So, we have a hero," she challenged, eyes glowing white. "What's wrong? Am I not royal enough for you?" Nightmare Moon's magic lashed out. The rainbow mare halted in midair, snatched up in her telekinetic gas. The alicorn merely observed the Pegasus as she struggled for freedom. There was anger and a bit of fear there, but no sense of familiarity. "Don't you know who I am?" she growled in the mare's face. "Some bully who gets her kicks pretending to be an old mare's tail?" responded her captive. Nightmare Moon's jaw dropped, and a gasp issued from the audience. "Such insolence!" she shouted, Matty casting the Pegasus pony aside. The mare screamed as he crouched into an elaborate stand. Birds scattered in every direction as he lay still, groaning in pain. "We know that!" The yellow mare that had been cowering past its guard stand gasped. "Does my crown no longer count after I've been imprisoned for 1,000 years?" Nightmare Moon shouted, glaring at the ponies cowering below. "It seems some of you must have heard the legend. Did none of you see the signs?" There was nothing but silence from the ponies trembling below. Nightmare Moon glared down at them, feeling their fear. Some of them were still squeezing their eyes shut, as though she had disappeared at any moment. Like some monster out of a storybook. "I see then," she declared, eyes narrowing. "So it seems Celestia hoped I just remained not a legend." A smile curled her muzzle as realization dawned. There was no pony below that had ever known her before. None of them had prepared for her. A thought brought forth a chuckle that slowly grew into full-blown laughter. "Well, Princess Celestia is no longer here to protect you," she mocked, me flaring above her a terrible whirlwind. "You'll never see her or your precious son ever again! Horse apples!" Rainbow Dash's voice cursed. Nightmare Moon's head spun toward the stubborn Pegasus. She was already on her hose again, darting toward her. With a growl of frustration, the alicorn's magic once more stopped her cold. "Like any pony," Rainbow Dash grunted as he tried to break free. "Could have beaten the princess!" There were a few shouts from the audience, voices of agreement. Nightmare Moon glared down at them, eyes blazing white. The ponies that had agreed cringed, but another thought came to her. She smiled, her phantasmal tail reaching onto the balcony behind her. "So, you don't believe me," she taunted, hearing the gasp of horror as she found what she sought. "Perhaps one of your own might convince you otherwise, Mr. Prose." A misty claw wrapped around the purple unicorn and dragged him into the air. The nightmare was vaguely aware of some pony else behind her. No doubt the white unicorn trying to escape the balcony. She merely ignored her, instead focusing on raising her herald over the crowd. "Why don't you tell them what you just saw?" Nightmare Moon asked, a wisp of stars tickling purple Prose under his chin. She looked down into the audience, all of whom were staring at him. He opened his mouth, a frightened squeak emerging. The dark alicorn scowled and tightened her grip threateningly. She could feel how fragile he was. The fear in his eyes showed he knew it too. She's not lying, Prose managed to whisper, his voice magnified by her magic. I saw it happen. There was all that black mist, and Princess Celestia just vanished. Prose hung his head as some pony below cried out. Even Rainbow Dash stopped squirming, staring at him in abject horror. Nightmare Moon, previously attentive and chuckled, returned. She could feel the fear filling the room, the realization of just what they faced now. Her head was thrown back in laughter. Laughter that only lasted for a brief moment. Caesar! The bass moan shouted from below. Only Steve knows what the princess is! Four-strike white Pegasi and golden armor shot from the audience. Nightmare Moon's mirth ceased. She grit her teeth at the approaching stallions, gathering magic overhead. It seems he needed to do this the hard way. Spike twisted, trying to watch the Pegasus guards as they swept past him. Hey! Wait! He shouted, unable to even wave his hooves. His voice no longer amplified. The guards didn't seem to hear him over the shouts of the ponies below. Those voices were just so much background noise, though. Too many calling out support, trying to find safety, or even just screaming in fear. He managed to turn himself enough to face the balcony. Only Nightmare Moon stood there now. Spike found some small comfort that at least Rarity had gotten away. Far less comforting was the white glow in the Alicorn's eyes as the guards drew closer. Stay away from me! She started to shout, magic gathering into swirling clouds forming over her head. A multicolored streak suddenly flew right to her face. She faltered for a moment as Rainbow Dash began to fly, dizzying circles around her. Spike could feel his head spin, just trying to watch her. Nightmare Moon's tail lashed out, snatching the mare, and let go of Spike in the process. The stallion gasped as he felt the energy surrounding him dissipate. For a sickening moment, he simply hung in midair. Then he was plunging toward the floor with a scream. Gotcha! An all too familiar voice tiered as Grey Host fastened her under his forelegs. Spike's thoughts were a jumble for a second. Looking up, he found the smiling face of dzetaW as she carried him toward the ground. Huh? He managed to grunt out, summing up his mental state rather well. Ditsy just kept her grin the whole way down, depositing Spike on the floor. His eyes moved from the mare, finding himself near the backstage door again. He could see Time Turner Rarity coming out before the purple dragon filled his vision. Spike gasped in surprise as Twilight tackled him to the floor. Arms locked around him in a tight embrace. You're okay! She practically sobbed. Oh, Spike, I thought... Yeah, I'm fine, he finally realized, patting the dragoness on the back. Thanks to Dizzy. The mare blushed, fluttering her wings a bit in response. There was a tearful giggle from nearby. Dinky sprinted seemingly from nowhere, pressing up against her in a loving nuzzle. Cheerily stepped over, patting dzetaW on the back with one hoof. It seems you're a hero today, Ditsy, cheerily congratulated the grey mare. I won't celebrate just yet, Time Turner pointed out, gesturing back toward the balcony. Spike followed his hoof. The guards surrounding Nightmare Moon had been forced back by a swirling mass of dark clouds. The black-coated mare was glaring from within the twister, while the guards battered against it. Rainbow Dash was still up there as well, leaving her namesake contrail as she spun around the alicorn. So, that's your weather manager? Spike asked, staring at Time Turner as he got back up. Is he just crazy or something? Not crazy, Time Turner corrected, before biting his lip for a moment. Miss Doss is just very passionate. Enough! Nightmare Moon's voice exploded from above, followed by a deafening crack of thunder. Rainbow Dash and the guards were sent careening in all directions as a miniature lightning storm raged around her. Spike cringed in terror, knowing he wasn't the only pony doing so. It would seem you're reluctant to accept my rule, Nightmare Moon called out, voice carrying a threatening echo. Perhaps an example needs to be made. The storm around her ceased, but her starry mane still swirled above. Twilight tightened her grip on Spike. He saw dzetaW pull her daughter close, cover her eyes. A cloud of energy spread further. Solid black began to tremble. Spike could only gasp in horror right before the dark mass filled the entire room. He twisted, struggling to pull himself from the endless nothingness that surrounded him. This wasn't simply darkness, a mere absence of light. This was absence of anything. Even calling it a vacuum would be assuming something had meant to exist there. Spike let out a silent scream, feeling the vast emptiness probing at him. And all at once, it was gone. The stallion sat bolt upright from the floor of Town Hall. His coat was slick with a cold sweat. Twilight was moaning softly as he got up, holding her head as though in pain. "Spike?" she managed to say, her voice hoarse and raspy. "What happened?" Spike stopped himself and looked around, suddenly aware of how quiet it was. "I don't know." There were more groans, other ponies coming around, shaking their heads and stumbling back to their hooves. Spike struggled to think, wondering just what sort of spell could have knocked every pony out in the room in one shot. "Is every pony all right?" Shirley asked, her mane being brushed flat by Rarity's magic as the two slowly stood again. "I think so," Rarity said, her blue magic tending to her own facile mane. "Somehow." "I've definitely been worse," Time Turner admitted, one hoof to his head. Spike glanced up to the balcony, brows scrunching with worry. There was no sign of Nightmare Moon up there. The strange black cloud from her mane still hovered around the ceiling, though. The reporter shivered at the sight of it. It wasn't moving. Rather, it almost seemed to be waiting for something. "Dinky?" Ditsy Doo's voice suddenly cut in. Spike looked away from the cloud as Ditsy spoke up. Grey Mare was cradling her daughter in her forehooves. The filly hung there, limp, breathing softly. "Dinky, what's wrong?" Ditsy asked frantically, shaking the other filly. Why won't you wake up?" "Because he was taken over by a certain, demon by the name of Antares." Ow! Spike could suddenly feel a cold dread squeezing his chest. New voices shouted from elsewhere in the room, growing to a cacophony. "Rubble! Come on, bro! Wake up! I am a bloom!" Spike looked to those who near him. Shirley had a look of hard familiarity with each name joining the shouts. Rarity was shaking her head, eyes suddenly darting about, still looking for some pony. A cold chuckle sounded from above, slowly silencing the cries and drawing his gaze up again. A pair of cruel eyes appeared on the cloud, glaring down at the audience. A dark gray streak suddenly flew up at them. Thunderlane's face was a mask of rage as he drove for the nightmare cloud. "You!" he shouted as he approached. "What does he do to my brother?" The stallion passed through the cloud as though it wasn't even there. It spun back around, struggling to kick and bite at it with similar results. "Consider this a warning, Ponyville!" Nightmare Moon's voice echoed as he ignored the attempts at her destruction. "Until you accept my rule, your fools shall remain locked in the endless slumber, trapped forever in a world of nothingness!" Thunderlane let out one final cry of fury, plunging through the cloud once more. He shot to the other side, striking the ground with a resounding crack of splintering floorboards. Spike barely winced at the noise, distracted by Ditsy as she shook her head frantically. "No!" Ditsy cried out, tears filling her eyes out. No, please, not Dinky." "I hope you enjoy this day, my little ponies," Nightmare Moon went on, eyes lighting in mirth. "For it was your last. From now on, the night shall last forever!" God, I love during that line. More horrendous laughter filled the room, the cloud spinning in midair. It slowly shrank away into nothing. Spike fell to a seated position, his mind struggling to process just how fast everything had happened. Twilight slumped against him as he looked around. Ditsy was inconsolable, sobbing against Dinky's tiny body. Shirley was obviously doing her best to calm her, gently laying a hoof over her shoulders. The teacher looked up with her own eyes, watering as more crying and frightening shouting carried from around the room. Time Turner was looking around, seeming to spot something. His mouth moved as though speaking, but over the other voices he was impossible to hear. The Air Stallion took off into the crowd, heading for the main stage. Spike just nodded, not sure if anything was being said was directed at him. He turned his head again, mind trying to process something. Some pony was missing from the group. "Rarity?" Spike gasped, getting back to his host. Twilight let out a surprised yelp as he fell to the ground in a sudden movement. Spike carefully trotted through the crowd, picking his way past the grieving parents and sleeping foals. His eyes scanned all over for the ivory mare, lost among the sea of colors. "What were you thinking, Dash?" Thunderlight's trembling voice rose above the crowd. Spike stopped in his search, eyes suddenly going to an area clear of ponies. Thunderlight stood there, body shaking from the impact of his landing, or possibly from Rumble's tiny body curled on his back. Rainbow Dash simply locked eyes with him, the two glaring daggers at each other. "You just had to go and get in her face!" Thunderlight accused, taking a step forward. And now, hey, back off, Thunderlight! Dash shot back, wings flaring. "At least I tried to do something! What was I supposed to do? Just let her win?" "I'm on Rainbow Dash's side here." Better than shouting, Thunderlight seemed to shrink. His wings folded to his sides, and he looked back at Rumble. Dash snorted before turning and storming back off into the crowd. The ponies cleared to make way for her. Spike spotted a glimpse of light. Green eyes widened as he saw Rarity sitting near an overturned food table. He started toward her, carefully moving toward the spilled pastries and such. "Rarity?" Spike asked as he approached. "Are you okay?" He cut himself off, as if he realized it wasn't the food Rarity was staring at. A little white unicorn filly laid on the ground before her. Her mane was a pale lavender and pink, done in gentle curls. Rarity had one hoof over her mouth, tears rolling down her cheeks. My little sister, Sweetie Belle," Rarity managed to choke out, eyes never leaving the filly. I was supposed to spend some time with her after our interview. I... He turned to Spike, blue eyes piercing into the stallion. The purple unicorn drew back at her accusing glare. You were back there!" she said, voice gaining in volume. "Celestia had been waiting there before, and then you! Verity was trembling, both grief and anger. Spike tried to speak, but suddenly was very aware of hundreds of eyes on him again. He looked around, seeing ponies looking at him thanks to Rarity's outbursts. Mutters and whispers were starting, and he saw a few of the angrier-looking ones stepping closer. Spike turned, trying to find an opening, before he could find a pair of rose-colored eyes locked with his own. Rainbow Dash had, once again, sped out of nowhere and was now directly in front of him. "Well, Spike, even in pony form you can't get anywhere without messing up." "You know, Verity has a point," she said, sticking a step closer to Spike. What's going on back there?" Nothing!" Spike stammered out as he fell to his front. "Oh, nothing, huh?" Rainbow Dash scoffed, still pushing closer. "You were the last pony to see Princess Celestia! You already announced it to the whole town!" Her face was right up in his, eyes sparkling with anger. "Plus, I heard you've been asking questions all over town," she accused, leaning so close to Spike he almost rolled onto his back. "Are you a spy or something?" "No!" he tried to squeak out. More questions and accusations started to ring out around him. Spike's voice felt like sandpaper as the entire circle closed in around him. His head was spinning, vision filled with nothing but glaring eyes, as voices couldn't answer ring in his ears. "Every pony!" Mare's voice suddenly boomed over the crowd. "Every pony, your attention, please!" The sounds of the crowd were slowly dying down. Spike remained stock still, though, barely able to register anything going on around him. "I know we're facing dire straits," the mayor shouted through a megaphone from the central stage, "but we must prioritize the safety of the foes first." There was a general buzz of consent from the audience. A sigh of relief could be heard over the megaphone as Mayor Bear cleared his throat. "Time Turner and the town doctors are already prepping Ponyville General Hospital," she announced, leaning toward the exit doors. "Right now, we need every pony to focus on getting our foes there. In an orderly manner, please." The exit doors were swung open at the political pony's gesture. Rarity cast one last glare at Spike, and turning away from him. Her magic gently lifted her youngest sister onto her back as he followed the crowd. Wait! Those ponies weren't even looking at him. Most of them too caught up in the fillies and colts they were carrying. The few that glanced his way had a very angry glare. He grunted as one of the bolder ponies shoved him out of the way. "It's not like that," he pleaded, straining to make himself heard. I didn't want to." The last few ponies headed out the doors, was slammed closed. The reporter was left standing alone in town hall, head shaking up to the floor. He twisted a bit as he felt a claw hand settle on his back. He slowly turned his head to find Twilight. He sniffled a bit as the dragon silently pulled him into a gentle hug. He asked in a whisper, I didn't do anything. Twilight didn't say anything, only squeezed tighter. Spike relented and put one of his forelegs around her back. He blinked away the tears blurring her vision, feeling the boiling drops hit his cheek. The sudden, hard weight of knowing how Ponyville felt about him, like it was crushing his chest. We... He wiped his eyes and tried to gather his thoughts. Canterlot, we should get home. Spike? Twilight asked as he released her. Twilight, they'll hate me, he said to her, as he pulling his hat over his eyes. I just want to be around if they decide to come back. The dragoness opened her mouth, but stopped. Her jaw closed as she slowly nodded her head. Spike sniffled again, turning and heading toward the doors. Lonely hostess echoed on the walls. Spike! Twilight's voice gasped out. He spun around, heart hammering against his ribs. For a brief moment, he expected Nightmare Moon again. Instead, he saw Twilight pointing at something. Spike's eyes followed her claw to her purple tail sticking out from underneath the tables. His magic gently lifted the tablecloth, revealing an orange Pegasus filly. Her tail twitched, and tiny wings fluttered as she moaned gently in her enchanted sleep. She must have gotten lost during the panic, Twilight realized, gently brushing her claw over the child. Twilight looked up to Spike. He tried to glance away, to look toward the back doors. It was too late, though. Purple eyes met green, and Spike knew he had no choice but to listen. We need to stop her, help her, she said. Twilight, you know what they'll do if I go to the hospital, Spike argued, trembling with fear. And they know you work with me. What if they... Twilight shook her head, and Spike sighed. He knew she was right. Even he couldn't buy the excuses he tried to come up with. His magic reached out and gently lifted the filly, laying across her back. All right, to the hospital then, he said to Twilight as he started toward the doors. And you run to come after me. No way, Twilight protested, patting his side. We're going to clear this mess up together. Spike didn't have the will to argue, but the feeling of his friend's claw against him gave him comfort. He went ahead to the moonlit streets. Recall seeing the hospital with Ditsy earlier. A good reporter wouldn't run from a story anyway, right? Twilight challenged, as he clambered onto his back behind the filly. Spike looked back, locked eyes with the dragon again. A small smile came back, and he just nodded before setting off.